ever, dude. Just like you pull in and you just get spit right out of them.
Well, hello and welcome to another edition of The Carve Up. You're with Silky and Harrow. And joining us in the studio today is a good friend of the show's. He's a former pro surfer himself. He's the founder of Bondi Boardriders. He's got a villa in Bali that he calls home. And most recently, he's become an author. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome to the studio good mate of mine, Elksy, Matt Elks. Welcome to The Carve Up, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Now, you're doing a bit of a tour. You've just released your second book, Bondi, Bali and Beyond. I know I've been following on social media. You've been down the south coast, up to Byron. You've been doing a bit of an east coast leg. Firstly, tell us a bit about the book and what have you been up to?
Yeah, well, I took advantage of pre-Chrissy sales and I came back from Bali and fortunately I had a few books with me in that and decided to do a book launch tour just to broaden my reader base. So I ended up doing 9 book launches, which I kind of just organised over Facebook with friends who had cafes or surf shops. And, I ended up going through Kiama, down to Tathra, out to Jindy, up to Newcastle, Yamba, Byron, D-Bar and Burleigh. And Burleigh was great. Finished there catching up with an old mate from Bondi, Shane Horan.
Not a bad trip.
Yeah, well... Actually, I caught up with a lot of people. My wife actually doesn't really believe I was doing a book launch. She just thought I was up and down the coast having a party.
Just tell us a little bit about the book. You've written 2 books, Scum Valley, which we'll touch on later, but the second book, or the most recent book, Bondi, Bali and Beyond. Just tell our listeners a little bit about the latest book. Okay,
the latest book is a collection of short stories, which all relate to beach culture, of course, mainly surfing culture. But they span probably 5 or 6 decades. There's a couple of interviews in there which I threw in, which were kind of timeless. One was with my uncle Bonza, who won the Robert Kennelly, who won the World Junior title in '64, won the first bells in '65, and the other one was with the Willis brothers after Big Wednesday in '98. So there were 2 interviews I had up my sleeve, and I could slip them in, and it's good. People are enjoying them.
Mate, well, tell us a little bit more about your connection with Bondi. Obviously, started the Boardriders back in the day, and now, is there many of your mates still in Bondi? Have they left to go to Bali, or are they up the coast? Like when you're in Bondi, did you catch up with them?
Yeah, funny you should say that because I got out there for a wave this morning. I went down and met a few old crew and the boys down there at the Pav, and Laurie Williams was good enough to lend me a board and some boardies. I got out there and got a few in the corner. It felt like old times. It was home. But, I only bumped into a couple of faces in the water. But it was still good to see there was a lot of energy out there and people were enjoying themselves, and that's the main thing.
Now, actually, when I was a grommet, late 80s, early 90s, you started Bondi Boardriders. And one thing I do remember fondly, although I didn't go, but, Luke Hitchings and Tom Witts and a few of the other guys went, you took a crew of young guys over to Hawaii and they hung out at Garrett McNamara's house and hung out with Buttons. There's some great adventures in those early days of Bondi Boardriders. Yeah, well, we were very fortunate after I'd opened my shop down in Bondi in 89 and started Bondi Boardriders that after, we had a few meets and that, and Shane kind of proposed to me, let's take them to Hawaii. I can get a house there at Velzy and we'll just throw all the boys in there and give them all that experience, of course. And Shane used to explain it as a vacuum with the older guys giving the input into the beach and vacuuming the younger, hotter guys and that, into becoming, real champions, which happened a lot in Bondi, over the decades, as you well know. But, we all ended up in Hawaii, and Kavika and Butts and the boys looked after us, and we kind of had a free pass out at Velzy, and we actually had the first tag team contest with Hawaiian team, international one ever held in Hawaii in 91. And that was great. We had James Labrador and of course, Liam and Garrett and the boys and that. And I think we ended up beating him 2-1.
Wow. Great memory. Well, mate, the Bondi Boardriders at the moment, Ian Wallace is the president. They've got a very strong team. They've had some success this year and last year. Mate, tell us about the current crop, and have you been in contact with those guys since you've been back?
Well, actually, Ian stays in touch with me over Facebook quite a bit, and of course I see his posts and that, and I'm always encouraging it, of course. I'm quite proud of the legacy that I have left, not that I ever set out for it to, be so successful and involve so many kids and give them the opportunity to aspire to become pro surfers in a club. But, as far as I saw Perth charging owls and places like that. If that's the standard that the boys are aspiring to at the moment in the club, then, they're going to be a good force to reckon with.
Well, let me tell you, I was there when you first kicked off in '89 as a cadet, and I've gone full circle, and I think a lot of people in the area that are still left are going full circle. So my kids, my 8-year-old daughter, we've got Bondi Boardriders had their registration this Friday night up at the Diggers at the golf club. So if there's anyone out there who wants to sign up, there's a free plug for you, Wal. But, I'll be there to sign my kids up, 6 and 8. So I'll be back surfing in the Masters, and it's gone full circle for me. So I was there at the start. As you get into your kind of late 20s, early 30s, work takes precedence. But I'm back. I'll be there for every board rider. So you talk about the legacy. It is a good legacy. And I've got to say, there's that many kids down there now. Like, my kids are in the micro Groms. Yeah. So you got them, you got the Groms, cadets, juniors.
Second generation.
You've got the Masters and the Grandmasters. So, mate, you should be proud of, what you've left behind.
And the culture's definitely changed. But in saying that, these young kids and that, of course, they're still on the same surf stoke that we were. And as much as that, you don't have the 100 or 200 guys hanging down at Bondi and the different crews and that, like when we were young kids and going through an apprenticeship as a grommet and that, to have those ranks in a structured board riders club and to see those kids enjoying it and that, of course, is what it's all about. So it doesn't really matter what the culture's doing as long as the kids are enjoying it, and that's the main thing.
Yeah, mate. Well, in the first book, Scum Valley, you make reference to the 80s and 90s and the real estate really pushing the locals out and the cafe setting up. So now all that cafe set and the new kind of parents that are sort of our vintage are bringing their kids through, and that's what's keeping the club alive.
Yeah, well, I can see that, and there was actually quite a while there where it seemed as though the club was in a little bit of doldrums and stuff like that because there was a big transition. Of course, a lot of the fabric of the community, a lot of the people who used to live there, when the investment money came in and that, it pushed them out. A lot of people ended up or down the coast or out into different areas and that because of the expense and that. But in saying that, there are crew who are still down there. You don't see too many of them, but they are there, and they definitely come out at board rider meets. And as Coop said, bring their kids and stuff like that. So, I mean, I suppose it's a bastion of what we grew up with as a club, and it's still there. So it's really important, not only, of course, to the young kids who are enjoying it, but of course to the people who were there originally back in '89 and '90 and that when it was originally formed.
And you're right. It's about getting the balance, mate. I had a chip on my shoulder for years, like all the, the blow-ins, as we call them, and everything else. And, we were a laughing stock for many, many years, but when I get down there, I've got a new sense of pride about it just because I see the young kids. And you're right, like, there's no grommet abuse or, getting dacked and bashed and whatever else that used to happen to us as kids. But, times have changed, and instead of fighting it, I've learnt to accept it. And I think, it'd be the same over at Manly, it'd be the same up the coast. So it's just kind of adapting to what's going on the beaches.
Well, actually, you've taken the words out of my, which are in one of the stories in the Bondi, Bali and Beyond book. And it basically touches like, a lot of my generation and a little bit older than that, we were in Bali in the 70s and the early 80s and that. And to see what's happened to that as far as numbers in the water and that's concerned and how that's turned into a bit of a basket case and that. But, you've got to come back to acceptance. Okay, if you don't want to deal with that, don't go surfing Ulu. There's other places and that. But everyone deserves their time in the water. You know, they're all there on the same surf stoke. They mightn't kind of understand that they should be showing a few guys that look just like old guys in the lineup a bit more respect. But, you know, they've been brought up with a different set of rules with surfing. They've learnt through surf schools. They haven't done 10 years at the beach where the first couple of years they weren't even allowed to paddle out the back. You know, and there was a lot of other punishment which went through that. And some guys, like I remember my Uncle Bonzo telling me about Damien Lovelock at the Celibate Rifles in the 60s. He went down to the Hep Pit, you know, the office of the boys in South Bondi and that. And Jack Bluey Mays and, you know, Mickey Dooley and everyone else and that, Kevin Brennan. And he kind of didn't get on. And as soon as he didn't get on with one of the older guys, he was basically shunned. And he kind of gave away surfing and took up body surfing after that, you know. But that's the kind of effect. It wasn't a place where you could just stroll down the beach and just infiltrate one of the crews. You were born and bred into it, and there was loyalties and respect had to be shown.
Well, let's just touch on the beach because last night you went to a meeting with Red Ted and a few of the old timers who were trying to get Bondi registered, I suppose is the word, as a surfing reserve. Can you just give us a little bit of detail about that?
Yes, well, there's a groundswell movement at the moment to get Bondi as a surfing reserve, which actually just gives it a little bit more protection when it comes to people wanting to do things there, which is always a good thing. And there's a man called Terry Jenkins, who's an old school Bondi person who's heavily involved in trying to get the museum, surfing museum, in at the pavilion, which I think's, you know, it's hands down. It should be. There's that much rich history that needs to be documented from, you know, when the pavilion and the surf club were actually built, which is in the early 20th century, stemming right till now. And there's been world champions, there's been, you know, elite surfers and water persons, which really deserve to have the recognition of a museum because, you know, back in the day, these guys, they weren't following beach culture. They were actually, you know, their emergent ideas and
they were creating it.
And that were actually creating it. So, yeah.
Well, mate, back in the day, there was a bit of a rift between the lifeguards and the surfers. But these days, a lot of the surfers are the lifeguards. And if you just take Bondi, for instance, a lot of those guys rip and they're a part of the Boardriders. It really has changed.
Oh, definitely. There's definitely been different dynamics in play with the lifesavers and the surfboard riders. Back in the day, we had some very strict lifesavers, head lifesavers and that, who'd just take your board as soon as you went 1 foot into the flagged area back in the day. Yeah, but I mean, you see Kerbox there and those other young guys and that, of course, they grew up at the beach and that. They all surf and that. Yeah, it's and especially kind of all being stars now and that they
Harry's and Whippet.
Yeah, well, you know.
Good luck to them.
Yeah.
Now the book, mate, it's called Bondi, Bali and Beyond, and the first book, Scum Valley. Where can we get them?
They're available at Gertrude and Alice bookshop in Hall Street. Or if you want to go to the Scum Valley Facebook page and scroll down on the timeline, there are links where you can buy it online. $22 delivered to your door, Bondi, Bali and Beyond, and $29 Scum Valley delivered to your door.
And finally, mate, Villa Selena, give her a plug.
Villa Selena, my little Shangri-La in North Bali. Yeah, well, it's funny how you end up in places because at 45, I didn't have much in the pocket. I got married. Late starter, I suppose, and I've ended up with Villa Selena in the north of Bali. And when I bought the land on the beach, I didn't even think there was a wave there. Well, little did I know. First big trade winds, we are 2-3 foot morning glass, not a surf for 100 miles. Some people are doing it tough.
Elksy, mate, really appreciate you coming in today. It's been good to chat, and Let's catch up for a beer, eh?
Love to, mate. Always a pleasure talking to you, Coops.
There you go. Matty Elks, we're back in a sec. You're on the cover.
Welcome, Craig Brokenshaw with the SwellNet weekend forecast, mate. Finally, some waves on the East Coast.
Oh, it's been a long time. I was last night, Manly. It was just onshore 4 to 5 foot junk, but I've never seen so many people in waves like that. Everyone's so desperate.
Yeah,
it was
I
good
saw it
though.
too, mate. It was from the Queensy to North Stain Strip. There was about 300 ants just out in the lineup.
Easy. Yeah, on any other day during the year, there'd be 2-3 people out, me included probably. But yeah, everyone's been desperate. This morning was good though,
Yeah,
nice
boys.
and clean, 3 to 4 foot.
Harrow, you've already been for 2 paddles today. Craig, I think you've had a couple as well. You guys are frothing hard right now.
No, I'm all like, had a bit of sun, salty sore. I need a nap. It's
mate,
good.
Tell us, how's the forecast for the weekend looking? Is this swell going to hang around? And start off with the Goldie, mate. How's it looking up there?
The Goldie, finally they're getting waves. The points are pumping. It's 3 to 4 foot. We should see the swell peak today, which is Friday. And it will slowly drop off over the weekend. So easing 3 to 4 foot on Saturday, down to 3 foot Sunday. But you'll have to hit up the beaches because the winds are going to be going more northwest, and the points will just be kind of shredded to, bits. Northern New South Wales is the same. Head up the beaches in the morning, easing 3 to 4 foot surf on Saturday. In Sydney, we're going to be a bit smaller, dropping from 2 to 3 foot on Saturday down to 1 to 2 foot on Sunday. And then there's a southerly change coming.
And, mate, what about further south down in Vico and South Australia? How are they looking for the weekend?
Vico, it was last weekend. That was the weekend to surf because Saturday's tiny, increasing onshore winds, and then a bit more swell on Sunday, but it's going to be bumpy 2 to 3 foot surf coast and a ride off on the Mornington Peninsula. Tassie, if you want to surf on the east coast Saturday morning, it'll be 1 to 2 foot, and then Sunday South Arm have a little 1 to 2 foot wave.
And, mate, how about over in the west, Margaret River and the southwest?
So Margaret River is probably, for the second time in this podcast series, the peak of the week. Winds are going to be really strong. There's an ex-tropical kind of cyclone. I can't remember if it reached cyclone strength, but it's tropical low weakening moving south. So the winds will be really strong offshore, but we should see the swell being the 4 to 5 foot on Saturday and then easing off through Sunday. And then South Australia is just no-go, building onshore, stormy swells Saturday and Sunday.
So Margaret River, the peak of the week, mate, and the long...
Margaret River.
Yeah.
But it'd be probably good. Maybe pack the kite in there so you can go for a bit of a surf and, surf and kite surf.
And, mate, looking forward to next week, is there anything on the horizon?
So next week, I'm just thinking. I haven't had a close look. There might be more trade swell up on the Gold Coast, but I haven't had a close look at that yet.
All right, mate. So check out the swell surf forecast
right,
to check out for next week. But thanks, Craig, for phoning in, and we'll catch you next week, buddy.
All right, catch you guys.
See ya.
See ya.
Okay, Silks, just to wrap up the show, mate, big shout-out to Culburra's Ty Watson. He took out the WQS 1000 up at Cabarita during the week. Mate, he's a plumber. He's just a battler from the South Coast. He took out the American Cam Richards in the final. Great to see an Aussie win an event on this tour. And Ty Watson Plumbing, we'll give him a plug there.
Ty Watson Plumbing, make your drain sing.
Yeah. So, mate, good on your time. Best of luck for the rest of the event. This is a carve-up.